Let's give it up for Daniel. Real commitment to self there. No code switching. I appreciate that. How's everybody doing this morning? Hope everybody's got their coffee and their muffins and ready to go. On the website, I saw all the impressive logos, the Amazon, Indeed, Walmart, H-E-B. I think maybe they're even in the house today. That Super Bowl commercial with the tortillas and Leanne Rimes was pretty amazing. I don't come from any of those companies. I have a very different perspective, I imagine. I would think that those larger successful companies have very mature product systems and product organizations in place, and the perspective I'm bringing to you is joining a company where there is no product organization and hardly any product function at the beginning. And so what I'm going to talk about are things that you can do as a product manager to make immediate value without taking engineering resources, without requesting an organizational restructure. Just very practical things that as PMs we can do to make a value from day one. So if you're at a less mature organization, as I discuss these topics, maybe it's something you can implement when you get back to add value. And if you're at one of the larger companies that I mentioned, maybe you think about, are these product functions ceremonial? Are we going through the motions? Can we improve on the margins, optimize them? So hopefully somebody's got something to take away here by the end of it. Let's see here. Technical malfunction. There we go. All right, let me talk a little bit about myself first. My PM origin story, if you will. I love PM origin stories because they're also radical. It's very rare that somebody goes to college to become a PM, gets a PM internship, and is a junior PM in the first job out of college. Maybe it's happened, but I've never met anybody like that. They're all crazy. I knew a guy who was in a band for 10 years who's now PM. I knew somebody who was a successful interior decorator who's now PM. I think the weirdest one was a grocery store manager who's now a great PM. And I'm not talking like a product manager at H-E-B like Dan Corbin, not cool like that. I'm talking like doing work scheduling, coordinating deliveries in the back, that type of grocery store manager. And they're all great PMs. And I was a sailor, and I was a cryptologist. And the Navy taught me a lot of good things, how to fold my clothes really well, how to iron my clothes really well, how to get my shoes really shiny. They're not very shiny in this picture. This is after a really long night out. It looks like it's 6 a.m. in the morning, but it's actually midnight. It's in Alaska in the summertime, so the sun is still up. One of the skills I got in the Navy, though, that I carry through my professional career is they're really big on teaching you how to not be a soup sandwich. And translated, that basically means how to have a strong sense of personal pride in your job. And so my job as a cryptologist, I had to learn how to work a lot of different software applications. And up until that point, I was 19-ish. I hadn't had a lot of experience doing that, maybe Napster and AOL Instant Messenger, to date myself a bit. So unless you count ripping songs off the internet and burning CDs as a power user, I was not one. But after 2 long deployments, becoming intimately familiar with these apps, I became a power user, and my knowledge on the product eventually got me a job when I got outside the Navy as a testing and integrations engineer. So I was responsible for testing these apps that I was once an operator. And word got around really quickly with the development team I worked with. And so they would come up to me. There was not a lot of interactions with end users, so they would use me as a proxy. And when you were deployed, why would you use this? Or when would you use this? Or if you needed this feature or this feature, which one would you choose? Because we don't have enough time to ship both. And so it's like my first exposure to PM-like work, and I'm just a tester at this point. Fast forward, I become a software development project manager, and so I get in charge of execution, which I knew nothing about. So I read a lot, went to classes, got certified, got super into Scrum, and it was like my religion for a while, and I'm past that phase. I still use certain things from Scrum, but I'm not as dogmatic as I once was. And the point being there is that I got really into execution. And then after that, I became what they called a program manager. And basically, you manage a lot of different software development projects. And you are now responsible for managing relationships with the program offices that are funding the development. You have to manage relationships with your boss who cares that the project goes successfully. You have to make sure the end user are happy when your product eventually ships. And so the trend here is that I've been doing product management work ever since I got out of the Navy, and it was just never called a product manager. And I'm in Austin at the time now, and the startup scene is like going nuts. I don't know what the stat is. It's like 100 people a day are moving here from California, and I was getting like FOMO, right? Everybody's like building really cool things. They're making the newspaper. They're moving fast and breaking shit, like Zuckerberg says. And I wanted in on that, so I started seeing like what I do and how that translates and what kind of job I could get. And it was obvious that I was a product manager, and I just didn't know it. And so after a lot of applications and interviews and job search, I got hired at Mio as, excuse me. I don't know why I'm struggling here. Am I hitting the wrong button here? A little help? Yeah, trying to go forward. Thank you. Yeah. So a little bit about Mio, quick to provide some context. So Mio was founded in 2015 by Tom Hadfield and James Kundle. And we have raised about $21 million in venture capitalist funding from venture firms like Y Combinator and Coastal Ventures, and we've also raised some money from our platform partners like Zoom and Cisco. And when I got there, well, before I get into that, let me just talk about our mission real quick to provide some more context. So we were kind of like a modern-day dispatch operator. If you are a Slack user at your company and you want to send a message to somebody at a different organization that uses Microsoft Teams, you can send that message in your Slack channel, and we will route that message and put it in a channel in Microsoft Teams or Zoom Team Chat or WebEx. So it's a lofty mission, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And when I started there on day one, just kind of paint you a picture of what the product function looked like. Whiteboard with company leaders drawing diagrams and bullet points, and engineers writing furiously on this and getting excited and motivated, and then they'd go off to build it, and we'd all be excited, and then the weekend would come, and then on Monday morning I'd walk in and there'd be a completely new picture on the whiteboard with a completely new idea, and we're kind of doing a pivot in the product on a week-by-week basis. So not a lot of direction. Also, the word priorities was used a lot, as in the plural version. And fun fact, priority did not have a plural version for 500 years, and it was only till the 1900s did we try and like bend the space-time continuum to do more by adding an S to the end. And so priorities was thrown around tons. So it's like, okay, everything is important. Also, our customer insights product function sounded like this. Whenever we were working, deciding what feature to build next, I would hear, literally, every customer I have talked to wants this. And that is almost never true. There were no receipts. There was no database to look in. It was just a lot of, relaying messages and trying to use what we could. Also, a lot of the times, I remember one time specifically being on a customer demo with what would be our largest customer at the time, and nothing works, and we've got developers pushing changes live to production on the spot, no testing or anything. I could hear the technical debt accruing as the changes went live. But the demo ended up working, and I'm kind of painting this grim picture because it makes me look better when I come in and bring in these product functions, but in reality, it was like an awesome place. Like everybody there is really smart. The ideas are just wonderful. Everybody there was great. It was kind of a perfect place to join, and I kind of liken it to like a wild Mustang or something. It was just all this beauty, all this potential, and I just had to like do what I could as a product manager to try and, here we go again, going backwards. There we go. So the question I was asking myself after I had oriented myself in the messaging domain and the startup space was like, what can I do as a product manager without bothering leadership for an organizational restructure or needing engineering resources? And so the three things, and also Tom was my CEO was very straightforward. He's like, you're going to have soft power. You're not going to be in charge of anybody, but we're going to rely on you to help us achieve this vision that I've got. And so using soft power, my questions are, how can I make this company more efficient? Because as a startup, efficiency is everything, right? You've got this finite amount of time or a runway. And if you make the wrong decision, that can be the difference between raising another round of funding or having to find a new job. So the three things I came up with in retrospect, I guess I'm just going to say next slide, please, was defining your product strategy and communicating it. leveraging customer insights in a methodical way, and having a hand in execution. A lot of the times I see that product managers try and think that the job starts and ends with deciding what to build next, and I don't believe that to be true. So let's get going. Next slide on product strategy. Next one, please. All right, so we're going to talk about what it is, this elusive product strategy, what it looks like, and then we're going to talk about why it's important and what its benefits are. Next slide, please. So what is product strategy? Is it finding your North Star metric? Is it settling on OKRs? Is it having a mission statement or a product vision board? Yes, it can be all of those things, but it's something that's like deeper and more intrinsic to all those things. They have like a common denominator. Those frameworks force you to answer the questions who, why, and how before asking what. And what I mean by that is it's your job as the product manager to know who you're building the product for, why they need it, and how your workflows in the product solve that particular problem. And once you spend a lot of brain space in those questions, the what becomes like a lot easier and more obvious, and we still miss on the what, right? Like Daniel said, we mess up all the time, but your misses, if you have your strategy set, are on the margins. You're in the ballpark. To stick with the baseball reference, your misses are foul balls, not whiffs. And if you're fouling it, you're always kind of still in the game, or at least in the bat. And so taking those answers to those questions and translating them into a strategy that you can communicate is very valuable. And so at the end, after you've answered all these questions and got alignment from all the different departments, the strategy should sound something like this. Our company's path to long-term sustainable growth is a function of our ability to solve this specific problem for this specific person because of our ability to do this specific thing. I borrowed that template from John Cutler's North Star metric exercise, but it's not unique. A lot of the frameworks have something like that, and you need to know that, and you need to use that to communicate it to the rest of the team. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of coming up with a strategy that everybody can rally behind? Having a product-led roadmap. I emphasize product, and I'll get into that in just a second. Aligning your organization and having a product-led focus and avoiding distractions. Next slide, please. So product roadmap. How does that help? Your product roadmap, first let me tell you what it's not. So if you Google roadmap, you will get this classic OG roadmap that we all know. It's features on the left-hand side, timeline across the top, and you've got in quarters if you're lucky, and then you've got little thin blocks that represent features, and you've got like a little, what's going on over there? Yeah. Oh, jeez. Thank you. Appreciate that. Just gonna put this down. And you got features, and maybe you've got like a rocket ship to say, here's the one we're gonna deploy, or a star for a milestone. And I understand why we have those. Growth and sales need those, right, to communicate what's coming down the pipeline. But it's not a product-led roadmap. A product-led roadmap, instead of features, it's hypotheses that you think that are going to help you achieve your strategic goals. And so when you have a roadmap that's got hypotheses instead of actual like work feature items, the engineers know why they're working on what they're working on. And it's a really great thing that when you ask an engineer what they're working on, they don't just say, I'm restructuring this database. They're saying, I'm doing this because we believe that if I do it, it will impact this, which then helps us achieve our strategy. And that's when your communication is you know it's working, when the engineers can kind of do two jumps from what they're working on to what the company is actually trying to achieve. And so my second point, it's a tool to help you communicate that across your organization. And the last thing, prioritization. So we talked about the timeline format for the roadmap. The roadmap that I prefer is Jana Bastow either invented or popularized what we know as the now, next, later roadmap. And so what that helps you do is it communicates to the company what you're building now, so everybody knows what's top priority. The next column is what the product team is working on, where their headspace is, what problems they're solving that will be built next. And then later, what's just an idea right now. And so that helps prioritize, communicate priority to leadership without committing to a timeline. And I try to avoid committing to timelines as long as possible, not until we start working on something. Next slide, please. All right, product strategy provides alignment. Okay. An outside observer can tell if an organization is aligned because the marketing materials, the terminology matches the copy in the product. which matches the deck, the pitch deck that the sales team uses. Everybody's using the same language, and so you know that everybody's looking at the same product strategy in this that you've defined, and they're using the same terms, and so everybody is moving towards one goal. And it's like a really pretty thing to see, because you go to the help articles or your marketing site, and it's the things that you are working on, and engineers working on the things that are on your roadmap, and sales is selling your actual product instead of selling your roadmap. Selling the roadmap can be really dangerous. It can actually derail your product strategy. So it's really important that sales is aligned on this as well. Another benefit of being aligned is when sales sells your current product and not a future version of it, they bring in qualified leads. Because they know who the target audience is, because you've discussed it and agreed upon it in the strategy. And when they bring in non-qualified leads, when you don't communicate the strategy really well, you end up having bugs because people are using your product in a way that you didn't intend to it. Technical debt can also accrue because you're trying to build things that the original code base was not optimized for. Next slide, please. Focus. So avoiding technical debt and avoiding frequent strategic shifts. So I talked about it a little bit just now. If you veer off your product strategy to satisfy a high-value customer, you can get design debt, you can get technical debt that will linger for months sometimes. And so by knowing what your who, how, and why questions are, your what's change less. And so you avoid technical debt by still building a product that is in line with your original strategy, and it doesn't veer too far off. It's when you make big pivots or shifts that you start to accrue technical debt and design debt, and everybody stays focused. For avoiding frequent strategic shifts, so this is what it looks like in my experience. A product pivot is what I'll call it. It's a smooth, charismatic, well-intentioned leader at your company, and they're very convincing, and they've got great ideas, and they're very motivating. And by the end of a conversation with them, you want to build what they're talking about, right? You're excited, and you've drank the Kool-Aid, and you're ready to go. But as a product manager, it's your job to press pause and start thinking, okay? What I do is when I'm receiving these ideas, and you can tell when someone's excited about it, I take notes, I listen, I ask clarifying questions, I make sure I understand exactly what they're wanting me to do. And then I run it through that strategy lens, that strategy machine we just talked about, right? Is this still the same strategy that we agreed upon 6 months ago or 3 months ago or whenever it was? Or is this something different? And if it aligns, that's great. Like full speed ahead, let's get going and go out and build it. If it doesn't align, then you may have a problem, right? You've got to go back to that leader and you've got to say something along the lines of this. Hey, so I really enjoyed that discussion we had, and I'm really excited. However, I just want to be clear that you no longer believe that our path to long-term sustainable growth is our ability to solve this problem for this customer. Because remember, we talked about that. And then they may get really crafty and say, oh, no, that's not what I mean. We're just adding this on. It's a 2-week thing. It's nothing. It's your job to stand your ground and say, I just want you to acknowledge that this is a shift in strategy. And if it's a great idea and they stand by it, then at least you've got clarity that it's a shift in strategy, and you can communicate that, and it avoids frustration with the engineering team. They know why things are changing and whatnot. But what usually happens is the leader will recognize that they're asking for something different, and it's not as good as the original idea, and they say, you know what, never mind. And so you hear a lot of the times that product managers' best skill is learning how to say no. I would say a better skill is training your colleagues to never even ask, that they know the strategy and they don't even come and ask because it's not in line with what we already agreed upon. And we spend a lot of time and effort coming up with that strategy, so it better be a good idea. Okay, next slide, please. Customer insights. Next slide. So let's quickly go over when to talk to your users, how to talk to your users, and what we do with that information. Because we're supposed to be the voice of the customer, right? So how do we find that voice and how do we represent it when we're building something? Next slide. I'd like to build a framework that forces me to do certain things because it's not always natural. And what I mean by that is when to talk to your users. I find that I do so when it's convenient to me. And it's convenient when the solution to a problem you're trying to solve is not obvious. And so you go out to customers and try to get some ideas and some validation. However, if it's a solution that seems obvious and easy, maybe I will skip that step and I will create my PRD, get it to engineering, they build it and we ship it, and it doesn't get used. And then I go back to the customers because now it's convenient to me. I need to know why we spent all this time and it's not getting used. And I get some nice feedback, go make some tweaks, we ship, and now it gets used. But if I would have just forced myself to talk to the customer earlier in the process, like my framework has told me to do, we could have avoided 1 to 3 weeks of a delay and gotten value out sooner. Another good, and also at early validation stage, one technique that I love to use if you've got a designer to help you in wireframes work in like Balsamic or something, if that's all you've got, but get those in front of the customer before a single line of code has been written and get feedback then. It saves so much time for engineering and reduces risk by a vast amount. If I was to choose any of these three, it would be early validation to do that before you build something. Also, sometimes the product looks a little bit different in action than it did in the prototype, and so you want to give them a chance to see it, and you can do that like on a QA or a staging environment. You set up a call, walk them through it, get feedback there. It gives you another chance to iterate before you go live. And then lastly, like the best part is when you've delivered something that you're pretty certain is going to add value. It's something that they've asked for. You can reach out and say, hey, we heard you, we listened, we know you have this problem, and this is our solution for it. We'd like to walk you through it and get some feedback. And they're a part of the process, they feel valued, and you're de-risking your decisions as you go. Next slide, please. So that's when to talk to your customers. How should we talk to them? So one way to not talk to them is as soon as the call starts, just rapid fire questions for answers that you're seeking to kind of validate your ideas or your hypothesis, to support your hypothesis. That can kind of put someone on guard. They don't feel like a human. They can feel that you're trying to get information from them. So what I suggest is kind of like a 3-stage process, and I borrowed a lot of this from the Reforge program. But first is kind of creating a rapport with the customer. Spend 2 minutes talking about anything but the product. Okay, if you're on Zoom and you see like a LeBron James bobblehead in the background, ask them if they saw him beat Kareem's scoring record. If you see a Taylor Swift poster, you say, hey, do you like the new Midnights album? If you see some book that they've strategically placed on their bookshelf just so you would comment on it, comment on it. And they like to share. And then all of a sudden, you're like two humans like exchanging conversation and you get to know each other a little bit. And then you can dig a little deeper, but not too deep. Start asking them questions about their daily workflows and frustrations that they've got. And obviously ask them things that are pertinent to your domain, right? You don't want to ask them, you don't want to get back that they hate walking 3 levels to go to the bathroom. You want to hear relevant stuff to your product that's not specific, because you might get some stuff that you didn't know to ask. And then lastly, that's when you hit them with like a design prototype. And it's like, what do you think about this? Or you ask specific questions. If we did this, how would you feel? And then you just wait and listen, and you don't interrupt unless you need clarification. And so that's one way on how to talk to them. Next slide, please. I got to fly through these. I'm running low on time here. So once you've got the data, what do you do with it? You store it as quickly as possible. So it's accurate as possible, and you make it as transparent as possible so anybody can go add to it, and anybody can go view it, from the CS team to sales team to C-suite to engineering. It needs to be this place where people go and learn more about what our customers are saying. And what data, what should it look like? This is all very obvious, but you just going to go ahead and put out there, you got to talk about your customers, what their problems are, and the opportunity size associated with it. And then you can sort, filter, search on what you're looking for to help support hypotheses you've made or help you identify new ones. And so I found that really helpful in making decisions. And it's not the end-all, be-all. You need more than that, right? If you have a high customer value associated with a problem you're going to solve, but it's outside of your product strategy, you probably need to think a little bit more about it before you build it. Or if there's something that's being asked for by a lot of people and your engineering team says they can solve it, but not in a scalable way, then it might not be worth pursuing either, because what's worth building if you can't scale it? Because that's what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. All right, execution. I'm going to fly through these because we got 2 minutes. Okay, execution, it's our job. It is not a project manager's job. It's not an engineering leader's job. All too often, there are trade-offs that have to be made because of technical constraints or resource constraints, and you need to be there to help make those decisions because you have a perspective that others don't have. And so if you're going to be a part of execution, here are some things that you can do from the product perspective without like restructuring your org into safe agile or whatever framework du jour there is today. Limit work in progress. And as PMs, we are this natural lever in the company that can kind of slow the introduction of new work, right? If we see that there are things being worked on that we have not shipped and gotten value yet, maybe you think twice before you open that lever and bring in more work. It will feel busier, things will be chaotic, and you'll feel good about yourself, you're getting so much done, but you're actually delivering value slower. And so I would argue that delivering value faster is more important than being busy. Product teams, the old way of doing it is customer success and sales gets all this information, and they wrap it and put a bow on it and hand it to product, and we put our thinking caps on and solve these problems and create these wonderful Jira tickets, and then we hand it over to engineering, and then engineering says, oh, this is great, we know exactly what to build, and they build it, and then you ship it. The idea behind teams is getting an engineer, a designer, and a product manager working together as soon as possible. So when you talk to customers, it's not just customer success or sales on the call. The other three I just mentioned are also on the call, and hopefully they all had a hand in crafting questions that are going to be asked, because everybody's got a different perspective, and the more perspectives that you allow in on the early part of the process, the less mistakes you'll make later on. Retrospectives, they are huge. They are medicinal. They are therapeutic. It's like one of my favorite things at our company. They help so much. And I'm not talking about a ceremony in Scrum or Agile. I'm talking about just in general. If you want to get better at something, you've got to ask yourselves, is there anything that we're doing that we can improve upon? And if so, what can we do? And two ways to have a good retrospective. Make it fun. Google retrospective template. You'll get 50. You just copy and paste it into Miro, whatever you use. We had one that was music festival themed, and it was like, which band would you not see again? And you talk about processes that suck and you kick them out. Which band would you go see again? It's like, this thing works great. There was a medical tent section. It's like, what do we like but needs to be worked on and improved? And we also learned that a team member had to go to a medical tent for stage diving, and so that was fun. And then making it safe is you're not invited unless you're relied upon for the process to work. My experience, lots of engineers are introverts and they don't love to talk. And so if you invite leadership in there, they're going to clam up and not say anything. So make it the team, make it safe, make it fun, and then you'll find lots of great things that can help you improve your process. Last thing, super quick, quality assurance. I know that usually falls under engineering, but as product managers, we've got this powerful thing called acceptance criteria that we're in charge of writing. Okay, and one acceptance criteria that you can do is reliability. And you can say, I want this feature to have 4 nines, right? 99.99% of the time this needs to work. And that does two things. It holds them accountable and it makes it clear what the goal is. And two, if they're going to monitor it on production, that means they have to code in some events there so they can go see how well it's working. And that prevents you from becoming a feature factory. They build, ship, and then they monitor. And instead of build, shipping, build, shipping, build, shipping. So it forces the observation phase, which reduces technical debt later on. And the last thing in QA you can do is keep scalability in mind. You want to, as a PM, we should, with a reasonable amount of certainty, be able to project into the future how many people are going to be using this if growth continues on the projected path, and tell engineering that 15,000 people are going to be using this at least in a year, so it needs to be able to withhold that. So engineering loves challenges like that. They want to build something that's scalable. They hate when you don't give them that, and they build something that they have to redo in 2 months. And also, QA will load test it so that it meets acceptance criteria as well. So PMs should have a hand in execution, is my opinion. And that's it. I know I was up here long and I went over a lot, so if anybody's got any questions, happy to take it.
Yeah, maybe we do like a minute or two if you can. Go through these really fast.
How often can a strategy shift? There is no concrete answer to that. I would say that there's a scale of the larger and more successful a company is, the less it should shift. Like you could go a year without it shifting. The smaller it is and the less proof you have that you have a good business model, it can change more frequently. I think last year or 2 years ago, someone had a good example, like Expedia's strategy shifted when the pandemic hit. It was like external forces occurred and it was like, the old way is not going to work. We have to shift our strategy. So I think in typical PM fashion, it depends. Yes, sir.
Appreciated the script on strategy with like a business leader or stakeholder. What's your kind of go-to script if you have like a key customer that's requesting something that's obviously valuable to them, but outside the kind of
Yeah, that's a great question, and that sucks having to do that. Like you have to have like a real backbone, and you just have to do it, and obviously get buy-in from leadership and sales, and make sure that they're okay with this. And hey guys, we agree this is like not what we do. And so you just basically let them know, we're thinking about this. It's not in our quarter plans, and we're going to keep it in back of mind, but it's just not what we're trying to solve right now. But we're thinking about you, and we'll revisit it next quarter. And then just take your lumps if they're unhappy, and then you move on.
All right. Well, I hate to cut this off,
Thanks.
Jacob.
Sorry
That was
about that, yeah.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, can we give it up?